You're good to go, Mark.
All right, let's call the February 14, 2024 Airway Heights Planning Commission meeting at 6:02 p.m. We will do our commissioner reports. Brenda, Bill, you guys have anything? Don?
I have nothing.
I'm going to assume Brenda and Bill don't have anything. I just have a real quick question. Down on Lawson, there is one of those lots that's supposed to be long-term converted from residential into commercial, or not commercial, but industrial because of the overlay zone with the Air Force. It seems like it's become a dump at this point. Do we know what's going on there?
Yes. This actually recently came up at a city council meeting, and I was able to talk to our code enforcement officer for a while about kind of what's going on there. So right now the deal is the owner of the park, the unit burned down. The owner of the park hired a company to demo the unit. They came in and demoed, realized there was a bunch of asbestos, essentially left it, which created now kind of an environmental thing. A new demo company has been hired and the city issued a demo permit in October. But the demo guys are actually working on the cleanup for the Gray Fire right now. So there's so much to do over in Medical Lake, getting somebody to actually clean it up who has the certifications for all the ecology issues, because now they need to clear out the soil because of the initial run at it. So the city has issued permits. We're waiting for them to get out there. In the meantime, a fence has been installed around it to try and keep people away from it. But this has been an ongoing thing. But we did do a little bit of research. We talked to our code enforcement officer. We're aware of it right now. It's a matter of time to get the actual demo guys out there who have the proper equipment to clean it up. This is stuff that there's state level ordinances that require them to, put it in like steel containers and ship it off to real specific disposal centers. It's quite the mess. But yeah, the city has issued the permits and we're just waiting for them to be able to actually take care of it.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. I saw that fence go up, but I just keep seeing more and more stuff being piled up regardless of that fence. I was really curious. Other than that, I don't have any.
Yeah, that's the neighborhood dumping. It's become the local dumping ground over there.
And what's unfortunate, what happens when you spur up asbestos, the second you put something else on top of it, that now becomes contaminated. So now even if we wanted to go grab the stuff that other people put on top of it, we legally can't because of the asbestos. So it's what we call a positive feedback loop. It's just bad things getting worse. But like I said, hopefully we'll have somebody out there. And actually, I can provide, well, while we're talking about it, the city is actually finalizing an agreement with some additional help on code enforcement, bringing in a subject matter expert to help out with the PD around the city as well. So they are making additional investments in code enforcement.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, no, that was a whole thing last week, but yeah, it turns out the Gray Fire is really causing issues in the region just with availability of people to do this particular kind of work. So,
and that's one out of about 4 or 5 hot spots in town that really need addressed.
Really, yeah. So that's what's going on there.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Zach. I appreciate that. I guess we'll move on to our staff reports now.
Okay. I actually have a bunch of stuff. I'm going to try and go over them pretty quickly here. There are a couple we'll spend a little more time on, but just off the top, I did want to have a point of order on our recording, just to clarify. Last month we did, you had a resolution for the approval, recommending approval of the 2023 zoning map. The resolution number was incorrect. The correct number is 2023-032. So I'm just reading that into the record for clarity. Secondly, starting next month, we're going to be taking time during the meetings, and I think we mentioned this last month as well, but I just wanted to remind everybody that we're going to be taking times during the meetings to go through some video trainings. They're short, typically 10 to 15 minutes. We're going to start off with the Open Public Meetings Act. So it's, really timely and fun, but we'll get through it, I promise. Next, reappointments. So just so everybody knows, the city council did vote to reappoint Commissioner Ponce and Commissioner Mitchell to new 4-year terms ending in 2028. So congratulations. Yeah, you're excited, I can tell.
Hey, man, that's a long one.
Right, 4 years. Next, I actually wanted to show you something. The Arts Commission, which is kind of your sister commission, they work on public art throughout the city, and they actually completed their first project. It's a small project. We were going to do kind of a ceremonial thing here, but the artist actually had to go to the ER that morning, so we're unable to do it. But this is the city's first art wrap on our utility box. This is on the corner of Highway 2 and Lawson Street, right in front of Wolfie's there. But this artist, Melissa Kupta, is local. She's from Airway Heights. She grew up here, and she did this really cool art, kind of showing the blue sky and the West Plains on the bottom there, as well as the municipal boundaries of Airway Heights. So that's some good news. It looks really good. Yeah, so if you're driving out there, take a look at it. I'm very happy with how it turned out. Next on here, the sustainability grant. Heather brought this up last month. We are working on a sustainability grant, which is essentially state funds to help us develop a sustainability feature in our 2026 comprehensive plan. It's going to take a long time. It's a 2-year grant. We did receive 2 submittals, so I believe Commissioner Campbell volunteered to serve on the RFP committee. So those just came in yesterday. So we'll be getting the RFP committee going either later this week or next week. So keep an eye out for that. But we do have at least 2. I need to double check and see if a third one came in, but I saw 2 come in. Next is the missing middle grant. Mark, thanks for helping me with the RFP and the scoring on that. We did offer the grant to Framework. They scored the highest. Framework did accept. We're working through city council right now to vote to authorize a signature from the city administrator on the contract. So that will be coming to the planning commission soon. That's going to include comprehensive plan amendments next year, and then associated, I don't know why I'm getting blown up here, and associated developmental code updates to the actual zoning code. So that project is, if all goes well, will run through the end of this year into January of next year. And that is also to be in consistency with state law, which was recently adopted through House Bill 1110 and 38 something. I can't remember the next one. That's for the ADUs, additional dwelling units. Anyway. Next, we did get an application, and we've been working on this for about a year now. But we finally have a full application for a zoning code amendment. So this will come to you for a workshop next month and then a public hearing the following month. The amendment is to Airway Heights Municipal Code 17.16, which if those of you who know, that's the J-list code. We don't like to amend J-list because it was very difficult to get J-list together. Initially back in 2012. This amendment is being brought by Vista. They would like to amend the municipal code to allow for the placement of overhead transmission lines within the APZ. We did require Fairchild support in writing, and not just their community planner, but actually the commander of the base. And Avista went out and got a letter from the commander of the base supporting the amendment. So we have everything we need. This will go out, start noticing 2 weeks from now. And then in March, like I said, we'll take a stab at it. But it's something that will come through the planning commission and we'll do a public hearing for. So I'll do the big one last, but just for an update. So Commissioner Dove did reach out regarding whether or not there were changes were made to the proposed time for the planning commission. We let them know we let him know there was a conversation regarding it. The commission opted to keep the schedule as is. He asked about his options. One option we did give Commissioner Dove was an extended leave while he's doing this volunteer work, very similar to what we did with Commissioner Davis while he was in training. So essentially an extended approved absence while he's doing this work. So when he comes back, and that's something that you would have to review and approve, but we did bring it up to him. I didn't get a response after that, so I'm not sure where he's at on that. But if we do get updates on the status of Commissioner Dove, I will pass them along. The last thing is we've been working on this project, and mostly this is Heather. I apologize. I say we like I'm doing a whole lot. This is really Heather's deal. But it's for pedestrian safety improvements along Highway 2. There was an open house on the 5th. Commissioner Campbell did attend. I was able to swing by after City Council. I was at City Council while Heather was at this event. But it was held at the Heights Church, and it was essentially to show the 30% preliminary designs. So we will, I believe, in the plan is in May to have a 60% design, which is based on the feedback gathered from the 30% designs. But essentially, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a design between Lundstrom and Lawson on Highway 2 to make the place much more safe for pedestrians and bicyclists. As you can see, there's a lot of landscaping. There's some new roundabouts. It's really interesting. I will actually send this out via email because there's several posters here, but I'd like for everybody to take a look and let us know if you have any questions or concerns or anything like that. But yeah, it's a huge project, and this is the first time we're actually seeing the designs and what's being proposed by the engineers. So yeah. Lastly, regarding this project, sorry. There's a survey as well, because there's always a survey, so do that. Lastly, there was a community event. We actually did this as the health fair. We are required, so this money came from WatchDOT as a grant, and since we are over 10% non-white, we are required to do some outreach to some of the larger minority groups in the city. So this includes making sure all of our communication materials are available in 2 additional languages through Title IX. So everything was in Spanish, but the second largest group we have out in Airway Heights is actually the Marshallese. So Heather's been doing some really targeted outreach to the Marshallese community, and she actually attended this health fair at one of the Marshallese churches on Saturday, and she took some pictures of some of the folks, and let's see, she managed to compress these into the smallest things I've ever seen. So I apologize for the quality. The originals are in better quality, I promise. This is Victor Ramos here. He's actually a project planner with SCJ Alliance, who is working on community outreach on the project. And these are just some of the community members that we were talking to. And this is a Victor kind of explaining to a gentleman who's in turn explaining it to his grandmother. So you're seeing English to someone who speaks both languages, and then to someone who only speaks the one language. So it's a really cool picture. Victor did a great job helping out here. These are some of the high school students who are doing some great work for the health district as well in the Marshallese community. But yeah, it was a well-attended event. We used some of our funds to actually purchase. I think Heather bought 100 plates of food. So it was Marshallese food specifically designed to get people to come over and talk to us. And she told me that 100 plates were gone by the end, so that worked. And they did get some good feedback. So it's really interesting event, really cool. A little bit different than what we typically do, but as you know, as you all know, we try really hard to collect feedback from groups in the city that traditionally we don't interact with. There are a lot of folks we constantly get feedback with, and that's great, but we also know there are large portions of the population that we don't get feedback from. So we are making a concerted effort to get some feedback from the Marshallese community. And with that is, like I said, Heather is out right now for today's meeting. She'll be back next week, but I'm sure her thoughts are with us. So she will not have a report, but with that will conclude my staff report.
Thank you, Zach. I saw them doing that wrap the other day on the box and thought that was pretty cool. So seeing those art projects finally come into fruition is pretty neat. Let's go ahead and get our roll call done. Commissioner Ponce is present. Commissioner Collins present. Commissioner Campbell's present. Commissioner Davis is on an excused absence. Commissioner Mitchell is present, and Commissioner Dove is absent as well. So can you pull up our, or you have it up, my bad. Can I get somebody to make a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I'm sorry, Mark, before that, do you want to excuse Commissioner Dove, or do you want to have a motion for that?
I don't see an issue. He's volunteering. He's let us know that he's going to be out, so I don't see an issue with giving him an excused one on that. And kind of go to bring up that point a little bit earlier. I think it would be appropriate if he wants to do that extended leave.
Okay. Can we then get a motion and a vote for an excused for both Commissioner Davis and Commissioner Dove?
Motion to excuse Commissioner Davis and Commissioner Dove.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you.
All right. Can I get somebody to make a motion on the agenda for tonight?
Move to approve tonight's agenda.
We'll need a
I
second.
second that.
Thank you.
I second that.
All those in favor? Aye.
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 The ayes have it. If you don't mind pulling up the meeting minutes from last month, Zach. If somebody can make a motion on this, the meeting minutes from last month.
Move to approve the meeting minutes from January 10th, 2024.
I second that.
All those in favor? Aye.
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 The ayes have it. All right, thank you. We don't have public comment tonight. We don't have presentations tonight. We don't have a public hearing tonight. So let's move on to our workshops.
Yes, the first workshop is Chair Collins had requested some time to after meeting with the two planning commission applicants to discuss whether or not the commission would like to recommend one or the other or neither to the city council for approval. So the two candidates are Pleasance Jones and Melanie Kern. Melanie Kern, you met last month and had a little bit of a Q&A, and Pleasance Jones was the month before. So you have the option to provide a recommendation. You have an option to not provide a recommendation. It's purely within the commission's plans. The actual appointing will be done by city council.
So I'm just going to lead with my opinion here. I really enjoyed both candidates and what they had to offer. But I think the one we had last month just had more of a wide array of knowledge that I think would be beneficial for the planning commission. I don't know how the rest of you all feel, or if you feel comfortable saying it or not. I just thought she brought a different point of view.
I agree. She is incredibly knowledgeable.
I didn't get to meet the first candidate, Jones, but based on the meeting last month and looking at the two applications, I'm inclined to go with Kern.
I'm in concurrence with all of you.
So I think with that said, we have a majority here. I think it would be okay, Zach, if we send that recommendation off to city council.
Okay, can we have a motion for a recommending of Melanie Kern as the preferred applicant to fill the vacancy on the planning commission?
So moved. Does that work?
Oh, second.
There you
Sorry.
All those in favor? Aye.
I,
Aye.
Thank
The
you.
ayes have it.
Great. So we will be bringing both applicants with your recommendation to the city council. It'll have to be a study session and then a legislative session. So hopefully we will have an appointee by next month, but I will let the commission know where that's at.
Thanks, Zach.
Yes.
Well, let's move on to your presentation.
I wouldn't call it a presentation.
Our
So
workshop.
this is
Page by page.
yeah. So this is the second workshop we are doing on this. Sorry, I'm trying to zoom in here, and I don't know how Google likes to do zooming in. Oh, well, we don't have to. So what I'm going to try to do here, we're going to go through the three sections that we're reviewing right now, which is Title 16, which is our subdivision section, Title 14, which is our developmental code, and then, or excuse me, I don't remember, we renamed Title 14 and something else now. But essentially the process in which we review applications, and then Title 18, which is our environment section. I'm going to try and keep this brief. I'm not going to go over everything we went over last month. The goal is to provide you updates on the changes we've made since then. And then we will bring final drafts for a public hearing at the March meeting. So for Title 16, the biggest change we've made here is we've added a section, section 16.10, which establishes a process for the review of boundary line and lot line adjustments. So this is essentially if you have a line between two lots and you want to move it and create, change one lot's a little bit bigger or smaller, or do an aggregation or a segregation, which is essentially eliminating a lot line to create one larger lot, and then a segregation would be the reverse of that. It's at the very bottom of the section, so I'll come back to the specifics of this because there are a couple things that I do want to touch on. But just going through this again, I'll kind of blow through this. You'll see just a housekeeping item. We have these ordinances from when this was last updated in 2007, so we're eliminating those from the language. One of the other major things we did in Title 16, as we're updating Title 16, again, we're also updating Title 14. So references to Title 14 in here, which happen a lot, essentially, if we're saying, hey, you need to, if you want to do a long subdivision, this is the process, look at Title 14.06 or whatever it is, those are changing. So we're making sure everything's talking to each other and pointing to the right section. So a lot of references were changed there. Just ignore that right now. This is a working draft, by the way. So this is how it gets made. So 1603.030. So we're gonna go through this. So all these things we already talked about last month, so I'm not gonna rehash them. If I remember correctly, that is the big one. Yeah. So 1603.030, or excuse me, yeah, 1603.030. That just sounds crazy. Number 6 here, it's adding a requirement, and we've talked about this before. This goes back to Sunrise and Hunter's Crossing. But what this is doing, we added some specific language in the comprehensive plan about parkland dedication. And what this would do would require parkland dedication for a long plat. So a plat that's over 9 lots. The language here needs to be cleaned up, and I'm going to clean it up before next month. But essentially, it's establishing percentages. It says mixed use right now, but essentially any subdivision, and this is going to change as we do the missing middle housing stuff too, because this is going to have to talk to that as well. But it provides 2 percentages for dedications, 5% dedication of any single family subdivision. So if you have 100 acres and you're dividing it into, 80 lots or whatever, you'd be required to dedicate 5% of that to parkland. The other one here would be 10%. Again, it says 5 units or greater, essentially multi-units or higher density. So I'm looking at that because I want to make sure it's going to hold up to the missing middle as well as we possibly can until we get to where we're going to be on that. But the point is that we're going to require parkland dedications on long plats, whether it's for more condensed housing or whether it's for single family. The other piece that's not on here that I need to add has to do with park board review. We did speak to our Parks and Recreation director about this specific item, and that was kind of the other way around it. So we're going to require the dedication, but we are going to also allow for the park board to review potential financial payments in lieu of dedication. But that's something that the park board will have to approve. So it's changing the process a little bit. Instead of an impact fee first, it's a dedication first with an impact fee option as long as the park board is okay with that. So that's one of the bigger changes. That language is new. And then additionally, there's some large changes towards the end here. Sorry if I'm making anybody sick here by scrolling through this really fast. That's binding site plans. We talked about all that last month. So last month I kind of mentioned this, 1607 and 1608, design standards. This is essentially a section that provides consistency with our public works standards. So it's kind of the nuts and bolts. I did have our city engineer review this, and he provided a number of updates to make sure that they are consistent with the current public works standards. So I'm not going to go through all the specifics of all the cross lines, but there are things like the plan of all street center lines to the horizon, to the horizontal scale of 50 feet to the inch, and kind of things like that. You can see it's really fun language, but it is consistent with our public works standards, and it did need to be updated. So that's 1607, and then 1608 is minimum improvements, which again speaks to like street frontage improvements and things like that, the widths of storm swales, really interesting stuff. Inspection requirements, things like that. So this is all designed to be consistent with the public works standards. Feel free to read through them if you like, but yeah, they are vetted. So 1607 and 1608, that's kind of what's going on there. And then 1609, which is the park impact mitigation fees. We had our Parks and Rec director review this, and the big change he wanted to make had to do with the fee. So in our existing language, there's a fee. It's been determined to be at least 148,000. So that specific number hasn't been updated since 2008. So anyone who is doing an acquisition cost based on that is getting a really good deal. What we did, instead of changing it to a new static number that's updated for what an acre of parkland is valued at now, is we actually we're gonna look at it annually. So this language now reads that it shall be determined by the adoption of the annual fee resolution adopted by the city council. So that gives us an option to review it every single year and update it every single year without having to open the code up and do an ordinance. So it's kind of going around the code a little bit, but in a good way, where it makes it much more easier to keep this in line. And hopefully we'll do that every year instead of every whatever 2008 minus 2024 is. I'm not a math guy, sorry. But that's essentially, and the crossing out of this is all based on that 148,000. So it no longer is required just because it doesn't make any more sense. So we're looking at there. And then again, just some cleanup. So this is that lot boundary line adjustment section I was talking about. The importance here is it establishes a process. We do boundary line adjustments every day. I did one this morning, but it's kind of bizarre because we have a process that's outlined within the definition of a certificate of exemption as opposed to having an actual process outlined. So it goes back to, I think this was done in 2007. So what this does, it provides us an outline of the process. It gives us an appeal standard, which has been really important, and we'll talk about appeals a little bit here. But it allows a decision, even though it's probably highly unlikely, but we are legally required to have an appeal on any action we take. So that's probably a liability piece there that we cleaned up. But the one of the big things is this actually provides an expiration date, and that's something we've had issues with where the process for these type of applications are odd. Because we can approve them, but we're not the final approving body. All parcel line adjustments and anything to do with lot lines or property lines, that's all under the jurisdiction of Spokane County. So we review everything, we give our stamp on it, but then we give it all back to the applicant to go down to the county and do it that way. We've had several instances where while we've approved it, it never got to the county, so it's never been complete. We even had one instance where we did a lot line adjustment. It was processed, it was completed at the county, but it was never recorded, which is the final step. The applicant actually passed away without recording it. And then the new person who moved into the house was trying to build a lean-to, but the lot line was off. So we actually had to have this person who had no idea what this was finish this process before we could do this, just because it was in essentially land use limbo. And he was a very elderly gentleman, nice guy. I actually ended up driving out to his house just to help him facilitate this process because it was such a mess. But what this does is it'll allow us to, hey, if you don't get this done within, I think it's 90 days, yeah. If you don't get this done within 90 days, the approval's void and you have to start over, which is really, really important for us. So that's Title 16. I'll stop there for a second. Are there any questions on that?
I don't have any, Zach.
No.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Title 14, I'm going to go through even quicker. The reason being, typically with these updates, we're showing the language, we're crossing it out, we're changing the words. In this case, Title 14, which is, again, it's got a new name, which is Permit Processing Procedures. The entirety of the language we threw out, and we started from scratch. So as we're making changes, all of the language is new. So it's hard to do a red line on it when we're not even using the existing language, because it would essentially be 4 pages of a red line and then, 8 pages of new text. So in this case, I just wanted to highlight a couple of the changes that we've made since we last talked about this, which let me get down here to the first one. And a lot of this, again, since this ties into so many other sections, we're just making sure the cross references are all good to go. The big change on here, we completely redid the appeal section, which is 7190. No, that's 090. I'm sorry. Where's 190? There it is. So we completely redid the appeal section to make sure it works in all cases, because we have administrative, quasi-judicial, and judicial appeals. Additionally, this section was beefed up to include SEPA, and I'll talk about that in a second when we get back to 18, but this was a huge change. Another change that was made, which is 1401-150. The section you had last month did not have decision criteria for conditional use permits. And we talked about this a couple of times, but essentially, in order to review conditional use permits, we want to make sure we're reviewing them on the same criteria. So these criteria here were added. So when we do get conditional use permits, we're being consistent with our reviews. And then the last big section is 1401-240, which is the very bottom. This, where are we at? 230, and it's vesting, and it provides expirations. And this is very similar to all the reasons why I just talked about having an expiration is important on boundary line adjustments. Recently, an expiration for a conditional use permit has come up twice. where we approved a conditional use permit. They sat on it for 3 years and then they decided, hey, we're going to do this now. Is this still okay? And since our code doesn't have an expiration for a conditional use permit or any approval whatsoever, it becomes problematic as things change around it. So when we, like hypothetically, if we review something for a conditional use permit and we say, hey, there's a compatibility issue with this neighbor here, there's a non-conforming residential use, there's a house there, we're going to make you put up landscaping to block it so the industrial use you want to do next door doesn't bug them as much. 3 years later, they come back, we're going to put it in. Great, well, that house is now gone, so that doesn't matter anymore, but you still have to put in the landscaping because I can't go back and amend that. So yeah, just making sure we have expiration dates on stuff like food and everything else is important. So that's Title 14. The last one I want to go over real quick. We did talk about Title 18, which is environment. Last meeting, we talked about the SEPA thresholds going up, which is essentially we're being consistent with the state law. This is a separate section that we now have to amend. And what it is the appeal section. I know there's a theme here. This is weird because for some reason our code actually references the state law. So our CW 4321 CO75 in the WAC. Instead, we're just having everything in the same exact spot, which is 1401.090B. So all of our appeals, including SEPA, are now in that section. This amendment just sends it to that section essentially. So you don't have to go to the state law. The state law is integrated into our code. Go to our section, it's there. So it's just for consistency and ease of use, but it is necessary. So, but with
Zach?
that, yeah, sorry, Bill.
Am I mistaken, or is that a typo? Shouldn't that be 1401.190?
Yes, I think you're right. This is why this is a draft, Bill, and this is why we're having you look at them. We'll get that cleaned up for next month.
Glad to help.
Appreciate it. Yeah, no, it is 190. You're right. Section B here is specific to SEPA because SEPA has a lot of. You can kind of see how the existing language talked about a final DNS, a DNS, an EIS. There's an MDNS. There's an FEIS. So all of that's built into the new language in 1401.190. So we will get that taken care of. But yeah, with that, if there's any questions, that's it. And that's a lot. So
I don't have any questions. I will say though, I love Bill's attention to detail because that
Right.
type of stuff just escapes me.
And that's what's needed for this type of work. So I appreciate it as well. So next steps on this, like I said, we will have final drafts. We've got to go through these at least like 2 or 3 more times between Heather and I with a fine tooth comb and have full on sections. We'll bring that for a public hearing next month. So all of these little, like I spoke a little bit about finalizing the language on the park dedication stuff. That'll be cleaned up and ready to go. And then we'll double check all our references like this one Bill just caught. So that'll all be available for a public hearing in March. And I am going to drag us all the way up. There's got to be a better way. Here we go. So tonight, the goal tonight was to be a little quicker. Like I said, kind of off the bat. So far, so good.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time we did a meeting in less than an hour.
Well, there's
if
still
any-
time to adjourn. I mean, if you want to wait.
I feel like there's probably some Valentine's Day plans for some people, and other people probably just want to go enjoy their night. So let's go ahead and adjourn this at 6:41 on 14 February 2024. Thank you, Zach. Thank you, fellow commissioners. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you all.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Good night.
We'll see you next month. Maybe. Oh.